Okay, so down here at the bottom we have login settings, and in this login settings section there's LDAP configuration and LDAP user import, and these actually work hand in hand. So let me go ahead and if I just click LDAP user import here, it'll tell me LDAP is not configured for this school, which just means I have to actually configure it with this LDAP configuration first. So let me click into that. And this first portion is login mode. It says here you define how users are allowed to log into the Cyberschool platform. So basically this handles how each login attempt is essentially authenticated. So it says users will log in with Cyberschool credentials only, which just means everybody inputted into the groups and users. Every time you input a username and password here, this is considered a Cyberschool only password and login, or username and password. So those are Cyberschool credentials. Then we have LDAP credentials only, this next little bullet here. So this will only allow for LDAP credentials to be placed into the login here, which is only your credentials that you use for your Active Directory. And then we have users may choose Cyberschool or LDAP credentials. So this is a hybrid login. So that just means the login actually will accept both uh, Active Directory and Cyberschool credentials. Okay, then we have the LDAP tab, and this is actually where you set up your Active Directory to kind of work with your Cyberschool server. So here is LDAP usually requires its users to specify the domain to log into. Here you can specify the default. So this is the field for your fully qualified domain name. Now, if it doesn't make sense to you, it's perfectly fine. Um, if you don't see yourself wanting to use LDAP, again, you don't have to go through this route. You're free to use Cyberschool credentials. Okay, and then there's this little tab here to allow user to change domain from login box. So if you are using a different domain name to log in, you can actually allow the user to change their domain. This is just the default fully qualified domain name to place into here. Okay, then we have these fields for your Active Directory server. This field's for the host name or IP, so you'll just take the host name or IP address of your Active Directory server and place it in here. This is the default port you actually want to log into or log in through. And then the filter for your Active Directory. And this is things like I believe it's OU equals staff, comma, and OU equals teacher or something along those lines. Um, it's not really familiar to me, unfortunately, but this is essentially the filter that you use for your Active Directory to actually pull all of those people or all those users into the LDAP user import. And the last portion is this administrative rules. So we just asked for your admin username and password, and this is completely confidential to you. Um, whatever you enter in here, nobody here at Cyberschool will have access to. This just allows us to get authenticated into your Active Directory so we can actually pull those users. So after you have this configured, you can just open up LDAP user import there. And this first tab is all the people that are actually pulled in uh, from your Active Directory using this filter here. So all the users on that filter will pull into this import tab here, and then you can select them and actually click this import users here, and then they'll appear on this synced, and this sync tab is actually everybody who is currently imported and placed into your Cyberschool user database. And so if some information happens to change between them, you can just select the user and use this resync user. Let's say they changed their username or they changed their email or something like that. You can resync them so that the information will be updated there. But this is essentially how the LDAP configuration and user import works within Cyberschool.